All right, what is going on, guys? It's Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and tonight's show, we're going to go over all of the current events that are happening right now. We're going to talk about it. Again, there are lots of things going down as we speak, so stick around. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, a.k.a. Marf, and this is Marfoogle News. If you've never been here before, remember that you can get notifications over on marfooglenews.com. And in fact, on top of that, you can see our full bibliography of all of our sources right here. It's all organized by thumbnail. You will see this thumbnail, Norwegians are fleeing, massive event, speaking of what is to come. And then once you click on that, you will see it will bring you to a page of all of our bibliography, our sources, every piece of information that we are showing you here. Plus, once you hit a yellow bar called web-only content, it is what it is. It is web-only content, stuff that you will only find on our website. The stuff that is too hot for TV, the stuff that people are getting deleted over, is all over there. So remember, there is an entire other show down there, so remember to go over and check it out. Now, on the right side, if you do want to support in any way, and you are already planning on getting supplies as far as prep, as far as protection against EMP, or if you want to get an energy solar generator, all of the links are over here. So the affiliates that we talk about later in the show, if you do want to find them, that's an easy way to find it as well, and that will also give us credit. When you go buy from those affiliates, that gives us a credit. They basically give us a commission of anything you buy. That way, it supports us and gets you a discount in most cases, at the same time as supporting your favorite channel. All right, let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. How are you doing, and what is going on tonight?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I am doing just fine.
So the U.S. consulate shut down after being hit with grenades. Apparently, that's what happened. It says the U.S. consulate was shut down after sustaining fire and a grenade explosion amid open street on Monday. No, this was not 5,000 miles away in Ukraine. The U.S. consulate in question was in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, mere blocks from the U.S.-Mexico border. The consulate and several Mexican military facilities were hit with fire, and chaos erupted around the city following the arrest of a suspected cartel leader. The aftermath of the fighting looks every bit as intense one might expect of an active zone, though this has occurred just a stone's throw away from U.S. soil. Mexican journalist Pascal Beltran del Rio captured footage of burning wrecks and devastation, which we've actually attached on our website. It is copyrighted materials, so make sure to go over and check this out on our website. So essentially, they arrested this supposed cartel leader, and havoc broke out. Again, this is something that may flow over into the United States, but normally this is a pretty big deal if it is who they think it is. Let's see here. It says, which, by the way, this happened, and it was almost immediate. They said within 25 minutes, things were popping off. So I don't know, Dex, do you know how would this change things for us here in the U.S., or do you think that the cartels that are here could do things, or they could use that?
We had an issue with the cartels. We always have some sort of issue going on with them, and obviously Mexico, especially close to the border, and these major border towns have a heavy cartel presence because of the traffic that they run across the border, right? So, but one of the things, if you remember, not too far ago, we were talking about they were holding up all avocados, right? Because they had threatened, they being the cartels, had threatened inspectors from the U.S. to have to do FDA inspections of food, or I don't know if it was FDA or somebody. It was an inspector, a food quality inspector that the U.S. requires for import. So there's always something going on down there, and there's long time been conflict between the Mexican government and the cartels, and I'm sure we've even heard of the occasional firing near the border, or sometimes even some have said it's gone across the border from them. So I don't know that this necessarily escalates, but it is, the U.S. consulate was right there in the midst of it, so it is sort of newsworthy.
Well, we'll follow the story as it comes out, and we'll see what happens. If you are in Mexico watching and you have information on it, let us know. Or if you have video, send it to, of course, marfooglenews.com/playmyvideo. Greg Anzalotti says, time to put on the full armor of God. Stay safe. Hey, thank you, Greg, for popping in. Thank you for supporting. And again, thank you, Tammy Vasquez, Galaxy Man, Missouri Unicorn, and Verner's 57. And Gene Gronick, thank you so much for subscribing just now. Appreciate you. Welcome to the Foogle fam. And then 4 minutes ago, Satanic Toilet followed. Satanic Toilet. Oil drops again, now more than 25% below recent high. Oil registered heavy losses Tuesday, building on Monday's decline as myriad factors weighed on sentiment, including talks between Russia and Ukraine, a potential slowdown in Chinese demand, and unwinding of trades ahead of the Federal Reserve's expected rate hike on Wednesday. Both West Texas Intermediate crude, the U.S. oil benchmark, and global benchmark Brent crude were below $100 a barrel during Tuesday morning trading on Wall Street, a far cry from the more than $130 a barrel just over a week ago. It says WTI dropped 7.6% to trade at 95.26 per barrel after declining 5.78% on Monday. Brent traded 6.9% lower at $99 a barrel, accelerating Monday's 5.12% decline. This was a quote. It says, growth concerns from Ukraine-Russia stagflation wave and FOMC hike this week, and hopes that progress will be made in the Ukraine-Russia negotiations are weighing on prices, said Jeffrey Halley, senior market analyst at Oanda. It says, it seems like the old adage that the best cure for high prices is as strong as ever. He added, noting that he believes the top is in for the oil prices. Crude surged over $100 a barrel for the first time in years the day that Russia invaded Ukraine. The prices continued to climb as the conflict intensified. When it hit 130 and in one of them hitting $139 per barrel, that really scared a lot of people. Later on, we're going to be talking about briefly the TikTok video that we showed you on Marfoogle News of the young girl basically saying that her divorced parents who are separated on a 2 days notice got together and then flew their family from Norway to Africa. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. One thing that I want to point out is I am Norwegian. I have family in Lillehammer. I have family in Oslo. I have family all over Norway, really. And I actually think that some of those Norwegian cities, I think that there are things that are possibly going on right now. So I'll talk about that later on. I wonder if they are going to lash back a lot harder than people think. There's a lot of very, very undecided people on what is really happening over in Russia and Ukraine. Of course, now it is even easier to have a one-sided view of it because now you cannot get information out of Russia, or you have to search for it. You have to go to sites like Rumble and others to even get some of their actual media. So we'll talk about that later, but as far as the barrels, pretty insane stuff. Deck, go ahead.
Yeah, the thing to take into consideration here is we don't see these prices reflected in our pumps right away. Like we are probably still feeling the effects of the $1.39 because I think for the most part everyone is saying they're at the highest they've seen the gas pump, right? So it'll take a little time for this to trickle back in, and hopefully those prices will come down. But the other thing is this is all sentiment based, right? This is the street sort of, reacting to what they think may or may not happen. And don't kid yourself. A lot of times those speculations or speculators are fairly decent and they manipulate quite a bit of the market. So they could be on a roll here, but it's just, a escalation away, a continuation away from that sentiment being completely eroded and this going right back up or continuing back up. And then I think the other thing we have to take into consideration is as these powers, especially Russia being one of them, produces a significant amount of oil, while they may have a problem trading it, they also have the ability to change the price, right? So we may see something along the lines of price wars in oil as it expands over time from these different countries and how they're trying to either generate revenue or get trade. Especially if you have a hard time trading, then you're going to lower your price because getting something that's better than nothing, right?
Absolutely. And then with the prices, people are going to see in about a week or 2 weeks those $139 prices, and then we will then see in about a month or probably a month and a half all of the prices come back down. So it's kind of crazy. We can see before it happens, before the pumps get high, you can expect it. So one thing that I would say is we have not seen the crazy highs as a result of that $139. So if you don't fill your tank very often, I would highly recommend filling it now, which, again, I don't think it's going to go down at least for another month, especially in a vehicle that you may not use as often. So if it's your getaway car or your third extra car that you may not use because you can't fit your kids in or something like that, make sure to fill it up while it's still under $5 in some places. It is over $5 and over $6 in parts of California, which is pretty freaking insane. And then Russian state TV demands reparations over U.S. sanctions and public hangings in Ukraine. So it says that Russian TV calls for reparations from the U.S. over sanctions, and of course Putin's lapdogs demand return of Alaska and California's Fort Ross, threaten nuclear strikes on U.S. and call for hangings in Ukraine. It says a member of Russia's parliament called for reparations from the United States on Sunday, including the return of historic settlements in Alaska and California over the West's vast economic sanctions. The Kremlin has been flooding the airwaves of its state-run channels with propaganda that paints a vastly different portrait to reality and shields the Russian people from the horrors of Vladimir Putin's bloody invasion of Ukraine. So again, this is from our media. Remember, when you read these, you always have to understand that it very well may be completely one-sided or biased or based on information coming down from the very top. I would suggest going and watching both sides of a story. Never take one side of a story for granted. Never just go off of one side of the media. One thing that I will say is anything you are watching in the United States that is based in the United States is usually under one or two families of media. There's, just a handful, maybe 6 or 7 families that basically run, or corporations that run all of the media. So that's why you see things trickle down through all sorts of different kinds of media. So remember that when you're, watching anything about Russia. Obviously, this is very, very pointed and very anti-Russia, right? And again, now people are being accused of being pro-Russia for being anti-media and not trusting media. I believe that we have enough reason to not trust media and exactly what they're saying, and at least to question it. That is one thing that I have to say is something that, you shouldn't be called names for questioning a narrative, and that's exactly the point. Think about the last few years. If you question anything, then you're canceled. And I don't think that should be the case. Ho Operator says, Bill, that better with 3 6s. Yeah. I posted that long ago on Twitter, and somebody didn't get how it was, the 3 6s. And, of course, you put it right there. And they were like, well, it's a 6. It's not a B. And I'm like, yeah, but it looks like a lowercase b. And then Irish Rebel, well-known PPE company, just shipped my most recent order, but told me additional orders will be 4 to 6 weeks out. So that's exactly what we showed last night. The orders that everybody is trying to get of the actual personal protective equipment is being pushed way, way, way out. Irish Rebel, knowing you, I know that wasn't an accident, and I don't ask you to be a record breaker or anything. Very appreciated. Again, I will ask you this. I hope and I believe that you have the ability to do that. But if you, again, I don't know you personally. So if you don't have the ability to do that, I will not say anything if you have to redo that. That is actually, I believe, tied with the biggest super chat we've ever got. So we do not need that kind of thing. It's very much appreciated, but I don't want anybody not paying a bill or something because they're super chatting us. God bless you, Irish Rebel. Again, you always go a little bit over normal, but that's, I hope that's an accident. And if it is, it doesn't matter. There's a reason why it takes a month and a half to get those to us, is because there's a chance to take that back. Irish Rebel, thank you, and thank you, and thank you. I don't want to come off as unappreciative because that makes a huge difference in an entire month. So thank you, Irish Rebel. But again, I just want you to know that nobody's going to feel bad if you can't do that. Odd Chipmunk, Saudi has announced it will accept the Chinese yen for the purchase of oil. This is a direct attack on the U.S. petrodollar. What does it mean? It will collapse the USD agreement since 1972. So Odd Chipmunk, that is something that we covered in that earlier video today. Dex, do you want to talk about it? I tried to play the clip, but it wasn't loud enough for people to hear. But you essentially said that, this was one of your predictions, is that this was going to happen.
Yeah, and they've been trying to do, obviously those who don't like the U.S. And like the petrodollar. And if you're not familiar with the petrodollar, all oil, for all practical purposes, all oil is settled or purchased and bought with U.S. dollars. That's the only transaction you can make for oil. It was originally started with OPEC, but then it's pretty much expanded to all countries, right? For the most part. But what is happening is certain countries have wanted to not necessarily use the US dollar and use another form of currency for settling up oil transactions. And it's been talked about for a long time. And but just recently, the Saudis are saying, hey, we're not necessarily sure we want to do this. We might want to go use the China's currency, the yuan, or we might want to use another one, right? So that can be a big deal, because what I said is, if you take the top producers of oil, like U.S. being the first, and I think it was China and Russia, and there was someone else, but if you just took China, Russia, and India, India was another one. If you put just China, Russia, and India, which all seem to be sort of siding right now together for oil consumption, they could actually put enough pressure in the market to say, yeah, we'll buy, and we'll buy without using U.S. dollars. We'll buy with some other form. And obviously China wants to control that. I'm sure they want their digital yuan to be the currency, and I'm sure Russia would like it to be theirs too. But I don't know that they have the financial impact to be able to pull that off. But the point being is, if somebody can make a significant hit on this, it will then really hurt the U.S. dollar, because a big portion of our value is based on oil and oil trade, because it is the ubiquitous, monetary platform for oil across the globe.
And we're watching. It's almost like it's a bad B movie, and we know where this is going. They are trying to collapse, and by they, whoever's doing all of the background, back closed door meetings, it looks like they are trying to collapse the U.S. dollar. And if you do that, you have to reset the whole system. And they want to make it look like even talking about a reset of everything is some sort of crazy theory. If you look at what is happening, we are, everything around our entire planet is based on a system that is based out of debt. We cannot just keep printing money. We can't just keep pushing the debt limit. We can't just keep doing this. It's almost It's almost like they know something is coming. By the way, my mother-in-law was over earlier, and I just asked Oogle, and I said, when will Earth's resources run out? And it pulled up, and it actually, the answer that the voice does, it said that according to the Jerusalem Post, that natural resources will run out in 20 years, or as little as 20 years. And I thought, man, if that was any, somewhat true, think about what they would be doing at the very top end of the planet. That might be Ganda, right? But if the slight chance that it isn't, it would explain a whole lot of the things that are going on right now as far as change. And they say if the population and everything keeps going as it is, that we will then have 20 years left of natural resources in some cases. So that's pretty insane. If it's at all true, think about that. 20 years is not long. That's by 2040. So insanity. And then we have twisted Russian MP urges Putin to fire nuclear missiles at U.S. Same gentleman from before. It says a warped Russian politician has called on Vladimir Putin to launch a ballistic missile at the Nevada test range in America to send a message. Now, he's basically saying to send it to where we would actually test it, right? So he's kind of saying, like, let's send one over as a message. It won't hurt anybody, but it will show that we're serious. Isn't that, and by the way, we talked about Baranova, the editor-in-chief from RT, leaving and essentially putting a target on her back, or she says she is. She says that she is risking her life to actually leave and say that we are about to be in a nuclear conflict, or she thinks that we are closer than we ever have before. She's worried about her family and everybody else even living through the next couple weeks, and she had an extremely high up position at RT. She was the editor-in-chief. What do you think about this messaging? Is it just kind of like where you have Lindsey Graham calling for people to take out Putin, or what's his face, the other senator on the Senate Arms Committee, saying, "Hey, let's nuke him"?
Well, it's really a radical statement, right? And we've seen some from our side too, right? So, but yeah, it is. Although there's a little bit of believability in here when they say, well, we could just hit like the Nevada test site where we used to, I should say, not normally, where we used to do our own testing, right? And it would just be like the warning shot across the bow. And so it's not like they're just spouting it off just to be, bolsterous. They're, in this case, they actually put a little thought into if we could do it, what would we do? And if we were just going to send one to just shake up the world, where would we send it where we wouldn't necessarily get, retaliation or damage anybody or any place, right? So it is kind of scary. I think the better way, if you were really to do that, would be to, do your own tests and do them somewhere else, right, where it's safe, whether it be a deserted island or out in the ocean or in your own, Siberia or something like that. But, again, this isn't.
Well, they do that already. They do those kind of tests, and that's their flex, right? But if it actually headed towards the United States and hit in Nevada, it's just a crazy thought. And pretty much everyone that looks at this and goes, okay, yeah, sure, buddy, they're not going to do that.
Well, and it's not like we wouldn't retaliate. Like that's their thought process is, they wouldn't do anything if we just hit their test site in the middle of Nevada where they already do this, right? No, well, when that thing gets airborne at any moment and starts heading towards us, that, we'll immediately have a response. It's not like I can't imagine they're going to pick up the Millie hotline and say, don't worry, it's just a test, but we're using your land for it, right?
Yeah. Well, another thing is that we have people in our kind of political realm that are saying exactly the same thing, that we should do a first strike on them and all of this. And part of it is the political theater that is happening right now. Here's the creepy part, and this is from people we actually know, and they are saying that the overall goal of this is somehow to get into a nuclear exchange, or that they believe that there will be a nuclear exchange. It will not be world ending, but it will be big enough to where the entire world kind of just goes and does what people say. And that is from people that are higher up than we can even say. So I don't know if I can, I don't know, I don't want to believe that, but from the people that it's coming from, that's pretty scary. You obviously see a lot of people sharing messages and things from people and not vetting them. These people, I wouldn't doubt it. Maybe that's the goal, and maybe it will never happen. But that is something from my personal life.
It's akin to the beam of blue, right? Where it was like that project was all about creating an event that brought the world together, right? So this would almost do the same thing if it was orchestrated in a way, as opposed to not being orchestrated, where it's, everybody just goes after one another. But if it's actually orchestrated from both sides, then they could actually pull that off, and where they would do it in a way that hits a few strategic areas that, doesn't minimize, but doesn't create, like you said, it's not a world-ending event. It's just a smaller event, but it basically gets everyone's attention and gets everybody in line.
Well, look at,
a new order of, this planet.
Yeah, well, and then some say that, it would have almost the same effect as Nagasaki and Hiroshima after the second one. Most attribute them, giving up and saying, hey, no more, because they didn't want to see any more destruction or damage. Scary thought of ever having any kind of nuclear exchange, just ever. Any kind, whether they be small tactical nukes or, huge giant ones. Watchman Street Ministry, Watchman, James, and Luis, thank you for subscribing. And then Dale Blank, sorry about that. Dale, thank you for your support. Thank you for supporting Independent. And then Curtis Nelson, I appreciate you. Thank you for subscribing. Welcome to the Foogle fam. Baby Yoda, again, thank you. I love you all. You're all craving some kind of bacon. And then Ho Operator Mockingbird Media, 1979 Church Committee hearing with criminals in action, or the three-letter agency. One thing I would say is Dice has a great book on that. Odd Chipmunk, thank you again. And then Steve Billings, thank you everybody that just popped in and subscribed. And then over on DLive, thank you, massive thank you to Zippy Moons. Pray, play, and prep. Make a plan, stick to it, head on a swivel. Thank you, mods, for taking out the trash. Unfortunately, some of those people were good people, but T-Man Red Pill, thank you so much. And then the King's Men Report, what's up? Hey, I hope you're still producing lots of content. It's nice to see you in here, and thanks for stopping by if you're still here. Jammer 1, Little Willie, MRSA, Blowtorch Barbie, Groovy Grandma, and Deep State of Mime. Thank you so much for your support. Phantom Freeze, thank you for following over on DLive. And then Dirty Root, thank you for following as well. Welcome to the Foogle fam. And then before we move on, we're going to talk about closing the sky and the now all over the place, the trending piece here. I do want to remind you, if you have not already, there is an actual way to protect yourself or your engines or your motors or your cars, your house, your generators from an EMP, is an EMP shield. If you do not know what this is, make sure to go over to the website. It will explain it. This is, of course, the same company that has worked with agencies like DOD, DHS, and, of course, the DEMSO team. This is a military-tested device that can actually protect against EMPs. In fact, it can protect against all three phases, E1 phase, E2 phase, and E3 phase, and it can protect against the natural kind. If we had a Carrington-level event or a CME come our way, this would help protect you against it. Again, go over to marfooglenews.com/EMP. One use for this is when you put one in your car after EMP or multiple EMPs, your car will still start. That is the whole point. It grounds the signal of the surge before it's able to fry your devices. If you have this set up in the right way, say you have a house set up with this wired in, a generator or a solar generator with this wired through, and of course a car, you will not only have your transportation still running, but you will have all of your appliances, and you can run it with your generator, even if the power doesn't come back on, which they say worst case scenario, if our power grid went down, all of it, it could take anywhere from 9 to 18 months to fix, and 90% of us would perish. And most of that is because we would not have clean drinking water. So back to over to our other point, make sure when you are looking at these things, look at the broad plan of things and make sure to be stockpiling water. That is one thing that is an absolute essential item. And that's something you can get from your local grocery store. You can get a gallon a day for $1, $1.20, or you can even go cheaper and get those 5-gallon tubs and 40 cents a gallon and fill those things up. Again, make sure to check that out. Baby Yoda says, middle finger emoji, love and shiz to all. Hey, if that's your style. And then Aussie Girl, thank you for your support from Australia. Thank you from down under. And then we're going to talk about Close the Sky. Kiev residents beg after new strikes. Dex, a lot of this stuff it's kind of really obvious Ganda. It says the sheer force of the early morning blast blew out the windows and threw a 64-year-old tax service employee against a wall, supposedly. Her mother, who is blind and cannot walk, is now in the hospital. One of the latest victims of a campaign of shelling that has raised fears of a Russian assault on Kiev. The explosion was so big, says Ragulina, through SOBs, says shaking with shock after going downstairs to be confronted by other residents. People were sleeping, glass pieces were flying around. I was literally pushed into the wall. It's really a miracle that nobody was taken out or died, right? Russian forces trying to encircle Kiev have intensified strikes on the capital, which so far have been spared the fate of devastated cities such as the southeastern city of Mariupol and Kharkiv in the northeast. So, by the way, it's like it just so happens to hit a place and not take any lives. That is lucky, right? Super lucky. But it also helps with the very trending push by all of media and everyone to get on board with this close the skies, to get public support to then enforce a closed airspace over Ukraine, which a closed airspace over Ukraine translation means that we would be enforcing it with NATO jets or U.S. jets or European jets, and we would be taking Russian jets out of the sky. That would be U.S. or Europe versus Russia directly, and that would be what's called a WW3, because then Russia would be in a conflict directly with us, and then Russia's allies, who have said that they are no limits partners, that would bring in China and others to their aid. So it's not exactly what people think. I keep seeing people that do not realize what it means. They've even responded to people saying, and this would cause WW3, and they're like, how so? You know, it's just closing the airspace. It shouldn't affect anything. Who do you think is going to enforce the closed airspace? It's not their high-tech jets. If it was their high-tech jets, they would just be fighting in the first place because they're already in a conflict with Russia, according to what is going on. Dex?
Yeah, and Adam, what we're seeing here, especially in this narrative, and this goes hand in hand with the previous narratives. We've seen the narratives come out about civilians and hospitals and schools and, all these locations, elderly homes, things like that. All these locations being hit is the narrative. And so now they're using that narrative to push for the no-fly. The other thing to think about, though, is the whole notion of what's called, I'll use the term conflict crimes, but you know the W word I'm talking about. One of the big things for that rule is that you don't go after civilians or civilian targets, okay? So the narrative showing that is one that would definitely push a narrative towards saying that Russia is committing these types of conflict crimes. And by the way, the U.S. Senate had just passed a resolution condemning Russia, specifically Putin, as a conflict criminal. And that's sort of a big deal, at least in the sense that, our Senate is pretty well divided. So for them to do anything unanimously, that means there's a lot of support for something, right? So for them to have passed, it's a resolution condemning him. It's not like any action comes from it, but it's sort of a significant statement. But for it to come from that group, it supports that narrative that is being given that says all of these things are happening to civilians over there, as opposed to just being a traditional, military style conflict where the military goes after the military and takes over and, then, rules the land if they win, or retreats and goes back, and it's just military targets the whole time. Now, of course, the flip side will tell you, well, the one military is using those locations to be shields. And, that's always been the narrative on the opposite side of this, conflict crime scenario. So I just put that out there. When you think about these stories and you listen to what's being said and what's being shown, and, pictures and a picture's worth 1,000 words. So, we see them and they're very graphic and they're very, tugging at our hearts, but we also have to understand what's all behind these narratives and what they support and what they can actually do with that. And by the way, if that conflict crime is something that goes to, say, like a Geneva Convention kind of thing, where they potentially convict somebody over it, it's a kind of a big deal.
Yeah, and just remember that you don't have to be anti-patriotic. You don't have to be pro-Russia to question what is going out. During conflict time, during wartime, there is propaganda. And that's how that's a good indicator that you are actually in a conflict with world powers, when you see this level of stuff going out. So, and just remember over the last few years, you may have been lied to once or twice or thousands of times. It's just funny that everybody kind of forgot about that, and they're like, oh, well, the same people that just lied to me are now going to tell me the truth. Russians could buckle in 10 days as Ukraine forcefully perishes 13,500 troops. By the way, if you go to Rumble or if you even go to YouTube, what's funny is RT's videos are actually showing up. The titles of them alone are very contradictory, and they actually have videos. In certain cases, it actually does show some of the things that directly contradict, which is kind of funny. It makes people think like, oh, well, maybe that's why they are blocked. Here's why I say that. In particular, there was one instance where they said that they had this, basically every Russian at this one airfield was just completely gave up and just kind of flipped over and said, please take us. There is an actual hour and 25-minute video of one of their raids, and they actually have multiple videos of their airfield raids, and one of them shows them directly, and it shows the Ukrainians fleeing and retreating. So all I'm saying is, when you look at the actual narrative versus the actual video, and we're not talking about a short little clip out of context, I sat there and I was like, part of it was boring. It was sitting there in bushes and stuff and running around. It's like the title, I had to go and find it on some other platform that did not block them and watch that video. But the title said it all. The Ukrainians were fleeing. Both sides were telling two different stories. That, to me, says a lot. So one thing about this is we're listening to essentially one source and one source only, and everything is coming out of the Ukrainian government, and all of our media is just using what they are saying. Before all of this went down, just put aside the conflict in general, how many people were going to Ukraine for their news? And how many people were going for their, I guess how many people were like, oh, this is the source we need to go to. They have the best news around. They're always truthful. If you knew about what has happened there in the previous years, they've done a lot of stuff. Like when people questioned their president, they shut down any kind of dissenters that talked badly about the president that was put in, which is the current one. Of course, there's also this kind of big push to make him look like an absolute hero. People have crushes on him. Now he's all over TikTok, and people have these silly videos because they believe that that's what everybody else thinks. And yeah, it's easy to kind of idolize somebody that they put in that position and make them look cool in every which way. I mean, I'm just saying I would stand back and let everything go down and be very discerning of everything right now. Leah says, please send a love mob to Lisa R. Hall. Also, a shout out to JStone78, one of the best mods we have. And then, of course, I will absolutely do so. Lisa R. Hall is one of our greatest mods. She is just such a sweetheart, and she is a genuine person. She's been with us for over 3 years, and she is starting to do lives now. So I was at her first live with many other Marfia. If you have not already, please go over and subscribe. If we can get her to 1,000, then she can not only go live from her phone, but we can also help her try to get monetized. And monetization is more than just money, especially when you're small. It's literally nothing as far as money goes, but it does help you get into the algorithm. So make sure to go over and check her out, Lisa R. Hall, exactly how it's spelled, and you'll find her right at the top. That's we'll check in at the end of the show. We've love mobbed her once before, but I don't think it didn't do as well as we thought because she's still at 250. The famous CV19 has subscribed. What's going on? Nice to see ya. And hopefully you're cooler than your name. Let's see here. I think this is all a global plan, including Putin and Zelensky playing a role, the collapse of the economy to start over with China's social credit system as a template. There will be microchips. Remember the DHS plan that asked all the small businesses? One of the things that they asked for is something that could tell, that could detect artificial, or what was it? What was the word, Dex? That could detect false microelectronics. Counterfeit. One of the things was a mobile device that could detect false or counterfeit microelectronics. Say like a chip. Think about that. In the future, I bet you there's going to be something just like that, right? People are doing it voluntarily right now. Baby Yoda, good stuff here. Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. And then Spiritual Uplift, I appreciate that as well. And then Baby Yoda, again, none of us want war. Someone else's idea. Exactly. And thank you, Baby Yoda. Thanks for your support tonight, and thank you for supporting Independent. And then before we go on to Russia's India Explorer opening an alternative payment, we talked about this briefly in our other video over on Marfoogle News. I do want to remind you right now, if you do want to get your ducks in a row and get actual prep food that will last years, go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. At the same time as helping us, you can actually get some of the best quality long-term survival food as far as the long-term buckets that have a full setup. It's basically, you don't have to think about what is in there. It actually has a full-on supply. You can get 4 weeks. You can get, of course, 8 weeks. You can get a 3-month supply. You can get whatever amount that you are comfortable with. But again, right now there is a 3-month supply that is $150 off. That discount will not last forever. They have already subtracted a couple of the discounts because of inflation and the prices that have going up, but they have not raised their prices in the last year since we've been working with them. So this is a really great company, and the food is really good. Go over to marfooglenews.com/prep. You can also get other things there like power solutions, like battery banks, and like really cool gadgets, I'm telling you. And then emergency radios, and you can get the most important part of any prepper's supplies is a water filtration system. They have the Alexa Pure Pro. That is highly recommended as far as Dex has it. It's absolutely great. I am still using my older system, and I'm going to upgrade to the Alexa Pure Pro. It actually purifies. Again, it is a system that can actually clean the water. That is why most of us would perish if we had a grid down scenario, is because we would not have drinkable, potable water. So that is definitely important. You can also even get iodine pills there. That is something, if we do have a nuclear exchange, that would be something that would be incredibly important. So marfooglenews.com/prep. That's again, marfooglenews.com/prep. In some cases, you get a discount, but in all cases, you help out our channel. We are independent. We don't have anybody backing us up except for you. So thank you, everybody that does. And then to go into this. So we talked about this and everybody saw this coming. It's not like this was something that was too hard to predict, because honestly, we've been talking about, China and other countries wanting to take the number one spot, and then possibly taking this part of, having the world currency. And now Russia and India are actually going back and forth and exploring opening an alternative payment channel amid all of these sanctions. So they're basically skirting around all of these. My opinion, and I'll say this again, is that India is going to end up siding with China, and they'll probably make out a deal over Tibet or of land that they've argued for, 100 years over. They may make a deal for that, for them to join them, because they are 1.4 billion people. They are one of the largest countries in the world, population-wise. And then if they join China, and then and Russia join, of course, India is, on the side of Russia. So not a good thing there. So if they're opening up these things and skirting around the sanctions, it's like, well, how good are sanctions in the first place? This is why many people were saying, who cares about sanctions? They don't give a crap about sanctions. They'll just work around us and get paid the same. So not good. And then Saudi Arabia considers accepting yuan for oil sales. OPEC leaves demand forecast unchanged. So Dex, you called this pretty much on the dot before this happened by 2 days. Dex, do you want to go over it?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what I was talking about earlier about the oil and the petrodollar, right? So if Saudi goes about doing this, and really, if you read the print or you get into the details of why they're doing it, and don't forget, like, they literally hung up the phone on our president the other day. He called twice and they didn't want to talk to him. It really comes down to they're looking for support in Yemen, right? And what's going on there. So the fact that we're not doing anything to help them, they're getting kind of upset with that, even though we've done a whole lot to help them and protect them and to make them as rich as they possibly can be. Militarily, we've supported them, with equipment, with finances, and of course, with the purchasing of just an incredible amount of oil from them and helping them, grow the riches that they have. You would think that they would be more of an ally, but they are absolutely showing at least the initial signs of being willing to play ball in this game. And maybe they're looking at an opportunity, or maybe they see the writing on the wall and they think that, look, this may be going in a direction that the petrodollar is not going to survive. And, we could be the first that helps usher that along. And, they've talked about it for years, like I said, but now to be talking about it in today's time is a big deal. And same thing goes with India. When we just talked about that article, while that's not necessarily specifically directed at oil, they've got tons of transactions that are all frozen. They've got a ton of trade because they trade heavily with Russia, and all of those transactions are frozen, and they can't complete the trades and get the equipment in or get the products back and forth over that. So they're looking for an alternate payment system. They need to have an alternate payment system. So all of these things are sort of, how does the world now react to these major sanctions? If they're not all on board and they're not all on our side, or on the side of the West, so to speak, that's putting these sanctions in, then that opens up an opportunity to circumvent the current economy we have now, or create at least a major amount of destabilization in the economy, which many people believe is what one of the goals is that complete destabilization of the world economy is one way to then sort of bring around a change in that. And I'm not going to use the term, but you guys all know what I'm talking about when I talk about that great thing that they want to do, as they refer to it. So that's probably, one of those two scenarios is likely to happen as this progresses. If Saudi doesn't back down, or if we don't go in and give them what they want to get them to back off of this, then we potentially could see one of the first countries to start eroding the petrodollar.
And we all see it coming as far as the reset. I mean, it's pretty clear. And then, like Bible Talk 777 said, a social credit system, the main parts of that are already in play. So we already have businesses preparing for this in Canada. Really weird, though, too, as far as, what the Canada system did. Everybody's probably seen the video of Trudeau basically talking about China and how he looked up to the fact that they were able to get so much done under a dictatorship, right? And he was admiring how fast they could get things done with that. At the same time, just a couple of years ago, we actually we got mad at Canada for letting Chinese troops train in their country. This is all stuff you can look up through our website or go back and look at. They even had an agreement where Chinese troops could go in by the thousands, by the hundreds of thousands, and not notify anybody in Canadian government. They didn't even have to notify the local police if they were protecting something they owned there. Basically, if they had something for their national interest in Canada, they could go in and bring in 100,000 troops to protect it, and they would not have to even check in. So think about that. With everything that's going on, it kind of seems like they're working with them. So what? And by the way, if you're in Canada, you probably already have paid attention to all of this. I know there's a lot of proud Canadians right now that are not exactly proud of their local gov. And then the U.S. warns China not to give Russia military economic aid. We'll talk about that here in a second. And then scientists are developing the first infinity train. The real-life Snowpiercer. Scientists are developing the world's first infinity train with an electric battery that recharges using the force of gravity. Train delays and cancellations are every commuter's biggest bugbear, but those relentless holdups would surely be minimized if there was a locomotive that never needed to stop or refuel or recharge because it had a constant power source. That's just what scientists are developing with the help of a $38 million or a $50 million US dollar budget. Their task is to create the world's first infinity train powered by the force of gravity, which will then be rolled out to a rail network later this decade. It says it will run on an electric battery that won't need to be recharged using conventional charging infrastructure because it will instead harness gravitational energy on downhill sections of the track. The friction of braking to slow the train will regenerate the electricity and theoretically mean that the locomotive could transport materials and one day people without having to stop. So one thing I didn't get about this is how would they pick people up? I mean, obviously they would have to stop to pick people up, but you're talking about it would it could go across the country, it could go around the world. I don't know.
Did you see that movie though?
Snow, yeah, very creepy.
I mean, it was creepy. I didn't like it, but a lot of people did. A lot of people, jumped on it. I think they made a TV show about it that picks up a different section of that timeline. But I mean, that's what they're saying. This is sort of like creating that type of a train, which is an interesting, evolution. I just don't know how. Like, you've got to use a certain amount of power to go up a hill. I don't know that you could harness more power. I guess that's what their logic is. They're saying they're going to be able to eventually harness more power going down than it takes to go up, because it would just seem like it would either equal out or it would probably be less. It seems like you'd have to use more power to get up than you would ever gain going back down.
It depends on how the track system is, because if they have momentum, then it would just slide up it. Or I don't know if this is
but you got to build
magnets.
that momentum, right?
Yeah, but at the same point, it's like, and it's like, well, why wouldn't they have an infinity car? Because all electric cars, when they brake, they're actually recharging their batteries. They use that friction braking system. So in any Prius, for example, every time you brake to a stop, it's actually charging your battery. So the more you brake, the more it charges. But I don't know if they could do that with a train. Technically, could they do it with some sort of bus or something else or something on land? Probably not, though. I think that's why it would be possible, is because it would be on a track, and somehow they would figure that out. I don't know. But science is changing. I mean, here's the thing. Think about where we are right now. Think about where we were when you were a kid. And then think about where we'll be in 20 years from now. They say that we are possibly going to run out of Earth resources, the resources that keep us alive in 20 years. It kind of puts it into perspective why you would think, well, maybe that's why they want less of us around, or maybe that's why they are looking to get off this planet. It seems like we're heading to the edge of a cliff. And people won't believe it because it sounds so absurd. What even sounds absurd anymore? Think about what is happening right now. Think about the last few years. Think about the first time you walked in and after all of this stuff went down and everybody was wearing a face covering. Was that not a huge... I mean, people are so used to it now. People, by the way, locally, before the main national thing went, locally, we dropped our rule that says that you have to have one on. And guess what? Everybody's still wearing them. Even though they don't have to. Maybe some don't know, but I believe most people do know that they don't have to. Nobody is requiring it, but yet people still are. And I'm not talking about in the medical field or in restaurants. I'm talking about everywhere. You go around the mall or in anywhere. And then, so my daughter is the one, oh my gosh. So I told, my wife probably told you, or if you follow my wife's Twitter, you would know that before all of this went down, my daughter came home and told us that they asked everybody in class to raise their hand or to, they asked two questions. Did you get the, or did you not get the? And she was the only one that raised her hands that didn't get the, or maybe other kids didn't understand it, so they just said they did, to get the thing, right? We were so pissed off. Think about that. If you were singling out one child, and I bet there's other kids, maybe the other kids just didn't want to be raising their hands because nobody else was raising their hands. My daughter proudly raised her hands and said, I didn't do it. But guess what? That singles her out. Now, why would a teacher be asking medical questions in the damn classroom? Think about that. There's a reason why it's a private thing, right? So either way, now, her teacher believes, she says that, she chooses to still wear one. But she said, they gave everybody the option because now it's not a rule. My daughter is now the only one not wearing a covering. And it's not by anything we push her to do. We don't talk about this stuff in front of her. She just didn't want to. So I think it's absolutely insane that it's the mass. It's just everybody is just a zombie at this point. Think about where we are headed. Shirley Baker says, check your Twitter inbox. I will. From Canada. Thank you, Shirley. I appreciate that, and I will try to check before the end of the show. Let's see here. I have not been able to give long time. I'm still here. Can others? Baby Yoda, nobody has to. I really appreciate it if you guys share our stuff out. Share it with somebody new. Share it with a coworker. Share it with a family member. Share. And then Awake Believer says, forgot the message. I got the energy following your link, but it didn't show anywhere that you referred me. Check your email. Make sure you got credit. Awakened Believer, thank you, and I will make sure to do so. Thank you. And then 737, thank you for subscribing. And then Thurlon Smith, thank you for subscribing as well. Welcome to the Foogle fam. Welcome to the Mafia. So as far as U.S. warning China not to give Russia military aid, it just sounds like more blah, 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 because what are they going to do if they give them military aid? Well, it seems like next we're probably going to be throwing in some minor sanctions towards China, right? If China backs them up or sends something, it seems like the political play is playing out right in front of our eyes. President B's national security advisor met with the top Chinese official on Monday to warn against China giving Russia military or economic assistance as the Kremlin struggles with the aftermath of its invasion of Ukraine. With its armed forces experiencing unexpected difficulties in Ukraine and its economy badly damaged by international sanctions, Russia has requested aid from China. This is what we are saying. U.S. officials said that this weekend, and of course financial analysts have said that Russia could default on its debts this week. By the way, Russia on their side says that they have not asked for aid, so this very well could be Ganda out of our side. It says, we have been very clear, both privately with Beijing and publicly with Beijing, that there would be consequences for such support. So we don't have that from China's side either. China says that they have not been asked. Russia says they have not asked. We are the only ones saying that they have asked. Dex.
I mean, what kind of consequences are we going to do? I mean, we're going to sanction them so that they're encouraged to continue building out their, economies with the other countries. I mean, what are we really going to do? It just, I mean, I get it. It's like the right thing, politically, and, given the narrative, you wouldn't expect us to go over there and say, yeah, go support go support the other team. We would, expect us to go over there and say, don't support the other team, stand with us, right? So I get it. But it's just sort of, I sort of chuckle at it like, oh, we're warning them, like we're going to do something to you. Like, what are we really going to do if that comes down? Like, what could we actually do that is significant? Like we could not buy stuff from them, but then that would hurt ourselves. I mean, it's like, it's really kind of crazy to think about, like what we would do to them.
They've already skirted around everything too. They've already worked out with other countries. We saw the lead up to this. By the way, if you look back in history over the last 5 years, you can see them preparing for what is going on now. People back 4 years ago when I said we're heading into WW3 said, oh, well, when is it happening? And back then I said the same thing I'll say now. It takes a long time to line these things up. We're talking about global domination. We're talking about changes of world powers that have been in power for a very long time. It takes many steps. We're not talking about organizing protest. We're talking about organizing world domination and taking down Rome, right? So I think one of the steps would be placing in somebody that you had hold onto their pocket and then doing all of this circus. Think about what kind of money it takes to do an operation like what many of you believe just happened a few years back. Think about how much money somebody would need to do that kind of thing, to pay off every single level down to the very smallest, to compartmentalize it, and to make it so where nobody knows the wiser. I mean, that's incredible. It took some genius planning to do what they just did. Steph Paints, thank you, Adam. I'm new. Love the content. Thank you, Dex. You're great. Steph Pants, thank you. Steph Paints, I'm sorry. Thank you, Steph Paints. Thank you so much. Adam Paints too. I love to paint, so I'm glad to have you, and love to see some of your artwork. Chloe Chantel, thank you so much for subscribing. Tony Ludovico, thank you. Welcome to the Mafia. And then, so we'll see what happens there. I want to talk about the video here. Now, I'm not going to play the music because it is copyrighted, and I'm going to pop my face in here. Same reason here. Okay, so let's see. And let me see if I can do this. Okay, so this is a TikTok video, and I feel like this gave me chills. The hairs on my arm stood up, and I think that's why it went viral. And Dex also said, it could have went viral too because they want it to. This could be Ganda. I looked at it. One of my viewpoints was that it does look like a normal teenager, but there's probably only about 15 posts. Usually teenagers are a lot more active than that. And all of the posts are very well put together. They're actually really good, like posts, like, from the first one to the last, they're good. They're well edited on some of them, right? But if there's any truth to this, it is it's very questionable. So I'll just play this. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm not going to play the music. It's just a loop of simple music, and it changes. So it says, every expert in Norway saying there's nothing to worry about as far, that we don't have to worry or be scared of the war. Every expert in Norway saying we don't have to be scared of the war. And then it goes to her parents, my divorced parents, taking me to Africa on 2 days' notice. So essentially saying that her divorced parents that are separated got together on 2 days' notice and flew to Africa. Why? And then you look at the parents, and they actually look like they're, kind of well-to-do people. They look, I don't know. I mean, they look, you can kind of tell by, what people wear, in a lot of cases, what their style is. Like, this woman dresses like my aunt, probably orders her stuff from a catalog, probably spends a pretty penny, and then he's got very nice clothes on. They just look like they're well-to-do people. I'm sorry to say it, but most of us can kind of tell. I mean, all of my clothes come from Target, right? These don't look like Target clothes. They look like, like they go to REI for their jackets and things like that, right? They're very clean cut. One, they could be just total actors, or two, they could actually be in some sort of position where they would get a warning. That's why I think a lot of people are looking at this and saying a whole lot. So let's go to the comments. A lot of people were kind of freaked out about this. Many of the comments basically go over, and it's a lot of people are saying, like, this is just very creepy. What do you think about it? We have linked the video on our website, marfooglenews.com. Watch it yourself. See what you think. What if they do know something is coming in the next few weeks? What if they are going to Africa? Why are they going to Africa? Is it just a normal vacation and she's using this for clout? Or did they get warned of something? That's what I want to know. It is very unnerving to think that maybe they got some sort of warning and they are possibly going there out of an abundance of caution, or because they got information that we don't have. Is Norway going to get hit? I have a lot of family in Norway. Again, some of them are saying that locals are saying that people are leaving, that some of the elites and some of the richer folks are leaving the whole neighborhoods. So that is something that kind of really got me on unnerved, right? And like she says in the video, many people in Norway and their media is saying, hey, you don't have to be scared. They're not going to invade. Well, why are some of the Norwegian elites and the oligarchs that live there, why are they bouncing out? And by the way, one thing I forgot to say that I did say on that other video, if you go look at her videos, it looks like she lives in a $1 million plus, $2 million plus house. So from an affluent family, right? Were they given a heads up to something that we don't know? That's only my question. I'm just looking at it like the rest of you. C. Anderson, thank you for subscribing, that Gen X dude. Doing my part, Marfia Mods, Adam and Dex, one love and good vibes. So by the way, if you catch something like this on social media, let me know. If you want to see more content like this, as far as if you want us to look at this kind of stuff, make sure to subscribe and make sure to let us know. NK has fired an unknown projectile which appeared to fail immediately after launch. South Korea's military says after Japanese media reported a suspected missile launch by the nuclear-armed North. The suspected missile was fired on Wednesday from an airfield outside the NK capital of Pyongyang, South Korea's defense ministry said in a statement. The airfield has been the site of several recent launches, including 2 of what the United States and South Korea said were tests of a new intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM. NK said that those tests were developing components of a reconnaissance satellite. Now, if you follow our channel, or if you're new here, then you would know we have been following the possibility of NK being possibly the vessel to deliver an EMP, or a fractional orbital bombardment system, a FOBS system, which is essentially one of our weak points. If they launched a FOBS, an orbital system that would be, it would look like a normal space launch. It could launch and then go around the bottom of the planet. It could come up where we have little defenses and then come up and do an EMP on us. I mean, Dex, that's pretty much why people are looking at every one of their launches. Do you remember when they said that their early launches were a failure, or they were very low yield? And it turned out that they weren't failures at all, because they were specifically going for low yield results, because that's what you need for an EMP specifically. At that point, we did not know that Russia had given them the designs for a super EMP weapon. So everybody thought that these early, mid 2000s launches were all failures. In fact, they were actually successes.
Yeah, exactly. And those were the tests, specifically the ones that were underground, and everybody sort of poo-pooed them and said, oh, they don't even have the technology because the yield is so small. It's not a powerful, nuke test. It's a really weak one. Well, in reality, that's the same type of release that they would need in an EMP type event, because it is up in outer space. It's up in the atmosphere, very high. And it's also smaller. It's something that you could put on a satellite and you can leave up there. And they've actually launched numerous satellites in the past, a couple of which have actually followed the FOB system, and a couple of which have gone over our hotspot, so to speak, the target, over the U.S., both over D.C. and both over the EMP hotspot near Kansas, where you would actually, the best place to launch an EMP to have the most effect across America and Canada. So, that's why we look at it. And in this particular case, they're talking about, reconnaissance satellites, they're talking about, space, et cetera. And all of that is part of the disguise for how you would launch a FOBS, because it looks like you're launching something into space, which is totally different than a traditional ICBM launch, which is more of an arced approach, from one point of the land to another point of the land, but it does go into the atmosphere, but it just does this big long arc, as opposed to a traditional space launch, which goes up and at an angle to enter into an orbit. It looks like it's an orbital launch. So that orbital disguise that sort of can catch us off guard, because it will come back around underneath the south end of the planet, coming up, through South America area, where we're less likely to be looking for something. We're looking to the north because we're constantly scanning for ICBMs, which would be coming typically from Russia across the Arctic, as well as from the water east and west.
So it's something that we have been looking into, as far as, we have worked with the EMP Shield, obviously. We have been trying to get the access to be able to talk to somebody like Peter Pry. We're working on things like that. Even if we can't talk to them, if there's the issue where we can't talk to them privately, we're even working with it, trying to see if we can even talk to somebody like him, or in that circle of people, even if we can talk to him privately and see what we can say. We're going to, we want to know everything we can, so we can pass on as much helpful information as possible. By the way, shout out to the mods. Thank you, everybody, for doing your hard work down there. I appreciate all of you. I know there's a lot of people in chat right now. Thank you, everybody that's been polite and nice to each other. And even if you disagree, to do it nicely and politely is really part of what's really made the majority of people in our chats really feel at home. If there is a couple outliers, make sure to be nice to them. It's your guys' part as well. If you don't call people trolls and instead be nice to them, there's a good chance that they may stop being a troll. And then if you can, find it in your heart to forgive them for saying something that was jerky. Watch. They'll end up being a normal person and come in and talk. And most of these people are alone in their house, and they fall part of a group of people online. They don't have any motivation to keep being a jerk. If you don't give them that motivation, and all of us have been a jerk at one time or another. So if you treat the trolls with kindness, and I'd say trolls because that's what people call them, right? And don't call them trolls, because once you call them a troll, they go off the deep end and they're never going to be a fan. And they can't use that screen name, which may be their main screen name that they use for everything. Then they're burned and they have to make a whole new account to come in and have fun. If you forgive and just forget if they were being a jerk, then, we may have a new member. The thing is back when we had the Discord, it was much more important because we had actual physical groups meeting in every state. And those groups were talking about preparedness and meeting and making plans and having plans to meet up somewhere. We then, we had over 15,000 and groups as big as 160 meeting in person and doing barbecues and just essentially getting to know each other, neighbors and like-minded people. That got canceled right before the season where everybody dropped their thing in the box or mailed it in. That just got dropped for no reason. They said it was because there was information being passed that wasn't good, but it wasn't us. We were just the room that people were passing it in, so there was no reason for them to get rid of us. We never shared a single ounce of information. We just made rooms where people could chat and made state rooms. And then, of course, our mods modded all the gross and, ugly stuff. We then tried to do our own app and everything else. It is way, way, way bigger of a project than anybody actually knows. And you take full responsibility for anything and everything that's said if you're not going through a service like Discord. There's a reason why Discord and everything else has millions of dollars worth of lawyers and all that. So we have to find a common ground, and we have to find some way that we can get everybody organized and, preparing for massive events. Overall, if you're new here, I do believe, and most of us do believe, there is something massive coming. And I don't feel like you guys are crazy for thinking that. And I hope you don't think I'm crazy for thinking that. We know enough military here to know that the very least the government is preparing for a situation like that. That the rich are preparing a situation like that. So why aren't we? The elites of the world are selling off stock like never before. We've never seen something like this. The fire sales, estate sales, everything. And they're all buying rockets and trying to get off Earth. So you can stay in this box of people that are just trying to deny it until the very end, or you can get ahead of it. That's my view. Preppermint says, "Grin, guys. God's got this. Read your Bibles. Keep those knees on the ground and raise those hands in the air. Marf, you make my day with your jams." Hey, thank you. Preppermint, thank you for your support. Keith Dyke, thank you as well. Dex, before you go over a couple of the things on there, I do want to remind everybody that the energy that I believe that, who was that Homeful or Awakened Believer ordered, this is actually running the entire show. This whole show has been powered by energy. And by that, I mean all of my power bars, my 2 power bars, all of my lighting, all of my music gear is all powered off of one Energy Flex 1500. It's a solar generator, so it hooks up to solar panels, or you can charge it from the wall, and it is a massive power bank. But essentially, it is modular. So the main system, the top box, goes on top of a battery. That battery then can be stacked on top of another battery and another battery. In fact, you can link not only vertically, but sideways. You can link up to 96 batteries to one base unit. So if you have a cabin that you've been powering or a 20-year-old system that you need to upgrade, I would definitely look into this because it is completely modular. It is completely silent. A lot of you have gas generators, which if we actually do have an SHTF situation, that is not going to be bueno. 1, it's going to be hard to get yourself gas for it. And 2, it's going to be loud as hell, and people are going to know you have a generator. If SHTF happens, people are going to be desperate, and they're going to be looking for the first person who has that motor running in their backyard. This, just by itself, the base unit with one battery does, of course, these times. But again, you can also have it hooked up to solar and be doing that at the same time. You can also get a quick charger that actually charges it in a quicker time than any comparable solar generator its size. So again, you can do that. Plus there's mods. There's different appliances that are low wattage that are made by them. And by the way, and one cool part is that you can order panels from Amazon or from anywhere else or eBay and actually use your own panels. I will say this, though. They're portable, foldable panel. I did not realize how amazing this thing was. It is absolutely just unbelievable. It is a fold-up solar panel. They have multiple different kinds, but theirs is incredibly high quality. If you have a solar panel that you got off of Amazon, you probably know what I'm talking about when I say low quality. These are not it. It's the ones that they have are absolutely amazing, and they are foldable. So it's just beautiful, and they work extremely well, and they're definitely for the long haul. So if you don't want to get a new one in a month, then make sure to go check it out. But either way, that's the cool part, though, too. You can go to Amazon or eBay and get made in China ones if you want, if that's your thing. But also, if you want to get a high-quality one, you can get one from them, proprietary. Go to marfooglenews.com/energy, INERGY, and, of course, make sure to use the code Marfoogle, which Awakened Believer, I don't know if you used that code, but make sure to put in that code, Marfoogle. All right, and then Dex, we have...
And if you use the link, it works too. Either way, link or code.
Yeah, I don't think you even... Yeah, I believe that it might not tell you, but I think that when you use a link like that, it's actually directing you, and it's able to tell them that we sent you. All right, and then the web-only content is absolutely just nutso. And then, hold on, I do have... Yeah, no, I think that is it. So let's go over that, and then I'm going to check on Lisa R. Hall at the same time, too.
Absolutely. So head over to marfooglenews.com, click on the thumbnail for today's show, and scroll down to web-only content. If you're on YouTube, just open the description. It's called Show Notes. It's the first link right there. It's always in our shows if we have supporting content that goes on with the content we're producing. In today's web-only content, you're going to find stuff that's too hot for TV, maybe just didn't make the cut, some stuff that we covered earlier, and we needed to, show you things that are too far to one side or too opinionated, and even some funny stuff. Like today, the president of our country made a statement and was trying to say the VP's husband, and said the first lady's husband has tested for CV, and then somebody had to remind him that he is the first lady's husband. So he's basically talking about himself. A traditional gaffe of JB, but it's very humorous if you want to go watch that. Plenty of other topics going on around here. As we've been talking about TikTok, and the way that the narratives have been controlled there, and the Ganda has sort of been programmed there, or at least discovered and then intentionally or potentially inflated there so that people see certain messages that they want them to see. We've also seen that our current administration and political system is using TikTok to deal with narratives. So you can go learn about that. That there's a new ship that's stuck in the Suez Canal. There's more information on not in the Suez Canal, in the Chesapeake Bay. But it's the same ship name as the one that was in the Suez Canal by Evergreen. It's the same company, I should say, not the ship name. So you can learn more about that. Plenty of other things happening, including updates on the sanctions. I think we talked about that on the news channel, as well as a lot of other political stuff that we don't really talk about on here that you might want to go take a look at, coming from both sides of the aisle, crazy things being said. And then, of course, even Elon is featured on there, which we did talk about on the short over on news. So don't forget, when we produce content over on Marfoogle News, that is short form content. It's ideal for you to share to your friends, family, get it out to other people so they can come learn about the Marfoogle community and what we're doing, and hopefully join us on the longer format shows, which aren't necessarily the easiest to share because they are so long. While you're here, though, don't miss out. 9 days left, probably 8 days when the clock ticks in another few minutes in the central time zone for the contest at EMP Shield. So if you want to win an EMP Shield, you don't want to buy another one, or you can't afford one, this is your chance. Please go here and take advantage of it. When Andrew puts these up for the family, it's a really great opportunity for some lucky members to actually win an EMP Shield of their choice. So you have multiple ways to enter. You can come back every day and re-enter. So if you're not doing that, please do come back to any one of the show pages that is from the main show. You will see this at the bottom, like we're showing you here now, right below the news. So EMP Shield giveaway, marfooglenews.com. Click on the thumbnail for the show, or on YouTube. Open that description and just click on show notes, the first link right there.
All right. Well, thank you, Dex. Thank you for your service tonight, and everybody else that came in tonight, especially over on DLive. Thank you so much, everybody. Big shout out to Vicky K. Thank you for doing some diamonds over there. T-Man Rep Hill. We got Lisa K23. Thank you for all your prayers. I got exemption. Lisa K, of course, was going to work, and she's in the medical field, and she was forced to either get the or lose her job. It sounds like you did not. So that is amazing. That is prayers answered. 100 employees keep jobs, we heard today. That is amazing. Vol11, thank you so much for the Ninja Genie. I hope that you are creating music and beautiful artwork. Serenity PA, Maui Racing Realtor, again, thank you, Jalissa, and everybody that, Mafia members, thank you. Big shout out to West Virginia Prepper. Big shout out to Bones and Rip Curl Readiness, great channel. Survival Living got his channel back, as you guys probably know. Make sure to go over and check him out. Make sure to check out Global Witness and Jacob Israel and all sorts of great people. Donut Operator, again, very, very great people out there. So make sure to go check out tons of channels. And then thank you, everybody. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro. Bound and awake and believer in the Theron spin and a 7-ball lever and awake and believer in the SP and that famous EV19. Bible talk 777 and a spiritual uplift of a baby Yoda and a bring back down with the Dell all playing and a Watchman streaming a street Watchman and a high operator, oh yeah. Got a crop on Duster and a Laura Griffith and a Shastina and a KC with it and a KR back with a Rickwell R and a Whitetail 7 and a Virginia Olsen Bobby Upjoy and a one on B Rivka, that Kathleen Dunford. Hey, I'm all one down with it back now, band now. My blue sky and a Jody, you know, and a Donna, honey, and a Cheryl from God Daytona with a Monday Lou and a JC. LC, Jesse, family, and Alicia. Hey, big shout out to Heidi 12 and now WA Rebel Starfo, no. The Natalie D and the Kathleen D. I'm back down with the Anna Trey E and the Drake Horse and that P-Lotion with the Kenny Cams. Martin is out on the show in the go and back around in the door and the no back round down in the bow and the bow. April Rose, oh. Light on Boyd. Light on Boyd and the man on daddy-o. Light on Boyd and the man dam dada. 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 Light Rebel, thank you so much for your support tonight. Let's make a fresh one for Irish Rebel.